Welcome back. Today we're reacting to some more Oversimplified. Today we have Hitler Oversimplified, Part 1. We're going to learn about Hitler, the painter. Right? He was a painter, pretty sure. Today I have a blue tongue because I had a Jolly Rancher and it was the best thing in the world. Like, just the best. Hands down, the best. I've been on a diet lately and Jolly Ranchers are amazing. I cheated and I had one and I do not regret it at all. Anyway, let's get right into it.
Look at this baby. So gentle.
No
so
mustache.
innocent. You'd think this child would grow up to become a good man. An honest man. Well, think again. Hitler was born Adolphus Hitler in 1889
Adolphus?
in a small town in Austria-Hungary. His father,
I didn't know
Alois
Adolf
Schicklgruber,
was short
born out
for
of wedlock,
something.
but eventually changed his name to that of his stepfather, becoming Alois Hitler. Alois was a mid-level Austrian customs officer, not really rolling in cash, but certainly rolling in women. He married a rich, older lady, but then immediately started having affairs, including one with a much younger house
Don't do
servant.
that.
A few years later, he left his sick wife to be with his mistress, but since the Catholic Church didn't allow divorce at the time, he couldn't marry her. So he waited for his old wife to die and had a child in the meantime. Then his
That's a dick move. Now we know where Hitler gets it from.
wife died, so he married his mistress and had another child, but then his new wife got sick, so he employed his much younger cousin Clara to take care of her. Then when his new wife died, he immediately got Clara, his cousin, pregnant, and then married her. In that order, you rock star. Clara and Alois had 3 children together, who all tragically died while in infancy. So when the 4th child, Adolf, came along,
Inbreeding is wrong. Don't do it. Or you could make the next Hitler.
Clara spoiled him rotten. The Hitlers had 2 more kids, and the family moved around a few times, meaning Adolf had to attend 5 different elementary schools.
Hitler had
Adolf's father
living
was strict, quick to anger, and took
siblings?
most of it out on the eldest son until he had enough and ran away at the age of 14, leaving 7-year-old Adolf to do most of the chores and get berated by his father. The result was a difficult relationship with his dad, while he was super attached to his mother, who worried over him and his health excessively.
I mean, you
Hitler
can't
did
blame
well
her
in
though,
school
honestly, at that
His
point.
grades were good and his teachers praised him. He was popular with the other kids and enjoyed gathering them together to play war games. He also loved reading and particularly liked stories about cowboys and Indians. As he grew older though, he started to get into trouble. He was caught smoking once, organized a raid on a local orchard, tormented his pro-Austria religion teacher with symbolic gestures, displaying his allegiance to the idea of united Germanic people under a greater German state in defiance of Habsburg Austria. You know, the usual.
Yeah, sounds like a normal childhood to me.
All of this enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely. The area of Austria-Hungary that Hitler
I don't like
lived in
that
was once
animation.
part of the German Confederation, and many of the people who lived there considered themselves to be German. Adolf tended to just go against whatever his father said, and since his father was an Austrian public official, Hitler got big into German nationalism. This enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely. Around this time, a family tragedy struck. His 6-year-old brother, whom he loved a lot, died of measles when Adolf was 10, and was buried in the cemetery just across from their home. Around this time,
that's gotta be
reported
tough.
a change in the young boy. Strange behaviors such as talking to trees and staying up late staring at the stars from the cemetery walls. He lost interest in religion, and his school grades started to decline, which enraged his father, who punished him severely. It also didn't help that he had just entered high school, and the cool city boys treated him like a rural peasant. He had to repeat a grade and had little interest in most school subjects, instead spending his time reading and drawing, which he was quite good at. One day his father said, "Son, someday you'll be a big balls public official like me." And Adolf replied, "No, father, I'm going to become an artist and soar high above the clouds with the eagles."
It just goes to show that dad is always right, kids. Always right.
Enraged his father, but by this time he was an old-ass man, so he just sort of let it go, and then died of a lung hemorrhage. Hitler just about passed his final semester, and celebrated in the typical way, by getting blackout drunk and wiping his ass with the certificate. However, he didn't take the overall final school exam, instead just dropping out. The now 16-year-old boy was unemployed, without much purpose in life, and for the next 3 years he stayed that way. He spent most of his time at the opera with his only friend, August Kubizek. Kubizek later wrote his memories of the young Hitler, and said he was passionately interested in many things, felt he was in many ways better than others his age, was quick to anger just like his father, and an incredible speaker once he was ranting. When he was 18, he said a very sad goodbye to his mother and went to Vienna to take the entrance exam for art school. He failed. Soon after, he had to return home.
Yeah, he did fail the art exam, right? He always had dreams of being a painter. I think I knew that, but just wasn't that great. You know what? maybe art is subjective, okay? It's very subjective. So next time, don't be a dick about it and say, yeah, this is great, okay? This art is amazing. You should definitely pursue this. And then maybe we won't have another Hitler.
Mother was sick, and her health was rapidly deteriorating. Hitler stayed by her side, and when she eventually died, the family doctor said he had never seen someone so overwhelmed with grief as Hitler was. Then Hitler returned to Vienna, still hoping to find a career in the arts, but he never did. Instead, without parental support, Hitler ended up on the streets. Now in his early 20s, he spent a few rough years living in and out of homeless shelters, making what little he could from selling postcards he painted.
Hitler was homeless at one point? I don't mean this in a dark way, but it really goes to show that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do anything if you want to. I mean, hopefully you do something better than become Hitler. Anyone, any homeless person on the streets has the potential to almost dominate the world. Just maybe instead of dominating it, unite it.
It's hard to pinpoint exactly when and how Hitler's extreme ideological beliefs formed, but his time in Vienna would have certainly played a role. Anti-Semitism was widespread in the city. The mayor, whom Hitler supported, was an outspoken anti-Semite. There were many right-wing anti-Semitic newsletters, which Hitler took a keen interest in.
Well, and one thing too, when you're leading a country, this isn't something that never happens. It's something that is employed by many dictatorships or many dictatorships in disguise. But you have to find a scapegoat. You have to find something to direct the people's anger towards, to distract them and keep them targeted, and to explain away all the problems in the world. And if the people are desperate enough, they will follow it. They will believe it. It's not a good thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's something that is not unheard of for leaders to do. Looking at you, America. But you pick a group of people, or you pick something, and you focus the anger there, and you explain away all of your problems there. That's what Hitler did with the Jews. They became the point of anger for so many people. They became the butt of the joke, so to say. They became the scapegoat, and they were responsible for all the problems, according to Hitler. And that united the population, except for the Jews, of course, against them. So yeah, maybe there was certainly, well, let me rephrase that. There was almost certainly personal feelings behind it too, because you don't go and do the things that he did without feeling passionately about it. Very wrong. But he felt very passionate about it. So yeah, might have been some personal aspect to it, but it's also a known tactic.
He bought into the conspiracy theories and became a firm believer in the idea that there are many races in constant struggle with one another, the purest of which were the German Aryan people, and the worst of which, he believed, were Jews.
Which ironically, Hitler was not of the Aryan race. Isn't that correct?
Since Austria-Hungary was a multi-ethnic empire full of lesser races, Hitler wasn't a fan. So when he was 24, he moved to Munich in Germany to avoid doing military service, and for one more year he was a drifter on the streets, until something huge happened. In 1914, long-standing tensions in Europe erupted into the First World War. Crowds across Europe celebrated the news. Within days, Hitler volunteered for the German army. The war gave him a purpose in life. His fellow soldiers gave him friendship and brotherhood.
So he basically fled the country to avoid doing military service. And then a year later signed up voluntarily for military service. In a different country, I guess, but still.
Despite the horrors of war, Hitler considered it to be the best time of his life. He was reportedly a brave soldier and was awarded the Iron Cross, first class. He was also very lucky and had many close encounters with death. His luck ran out in 1916, however, when an artillery shell injured his leg. He went back to Germany to recover and was outraged to find a general apathetic anti-war attitude among the exhausted and hungry German populace. With the war turning against Germany, he returned to the front lines.
Gotta keep the people fed, man.
British gas attack in 1918. A month later, still recovering in hospital, Hitler learned of Germany's defeat and surrender. The terms of the peace treaty were tough on Germany. It had to pay a lot of money and lose a lot of soldiers. These conditions weakened Germany and humiliated the German people. Europe's borders changed after the war too. New countries were formed out of Russia's lost territory, Austria-Hungary was dissolved, and there was one big new country splitting Germany into two. Hitler, seeing the country he loved humiliated like this, said that hatred grew in him for those responsible, by which he meant communists and Jews, who he believed had stabbed Germany in the back by spreading dissent and anti-war propaganda back home.
Interesting. I do remember actually hearing that for whatever reason, Hitler was not a big fan of the communists. And I never understood why. It's quite interesting to hear the backstory on how he grew up and some of the tragedy that he went through, and to hear how his dad was. He was abusive. He was manipulative, I'm gathering from what they said. He basically left his sick wife for a younger woman. He left that one when she got sick too. He basically had kids with his cousin. He beat his children. I mean, that was the dad. And they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So of course, Hitler is going to grow up with some problems. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who's in that situation would have turned out that way. I don't believe that. I believe that there's some aspect of individuality to it. But under those circumstances, it does kind of help us understand why he kind of turned into the person that he turned into. Because some people would take that situation and draw strength from it and gain resolve to be a better person and to ensure that they never do those things and to oppose those things that led them to suffer when they were younger. And other different kinds of people will think growing up then that this is okay behavior. I had to go through it. Now you have to go through it too. So there's kind of two ends of that spectrum there. And Hitler clearly fell on the, well, I went through this, and yeah, it kind of just made him gritty, if you know what I mean, from that experience. And he kind of was the victim of that, and it kind of turned him dark a bit, you know? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.